Think about the last time you left your house. You locked the front door, put your keys in your pocket, and just felt completely safe.
Right, you probably didn't even think twice about it.
Exactly. But what if I told you that the very things you do to feel secure, like those routines you completely rely on, might actually be the exact mechanisms making you a perfect target?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is a terrifying thought.
Right. Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a close look at a stack of source material titled 3 Scary, True End of School Year Horror Stories.
And let me just say, this collection really takes every sunny, nostalgic coming-of-age trope you have about summer freedom and just completely weaponizes it.
It totally does. And our mission today is to unpack these accounts, not just for the scare factor, but to really figure out what happens when the structures we trust just, suddenly collapse.
Yeah, because the defining theme across these sources isn't the supernatural, which, is what the phrase horror stories usually primes you to expect.
Yeah, you hear that and you think ghosts or demons?
Exactly. But we aren't dealing with ghosts today. We are looking at the terrifying consequences of dissolving boundaries.
All right.
Think about it. The school year is heavily structured. It's this walled garden of schedules and rules and expectations.
Oh, for sure.
But when that final bell rings, those structures just evaporate. And what we see in these accounts is that the invisible social contracts that keep us safe, they seem to vanish right along with them.
I want to spend a second on that idea, actually, that social contract, because it feels really central to everything we're going to discuss today.
It absolutely is.
We navigate the world assuming this baseline of rational behavior from other people, right? Like we drive cars at 60 miles an hour toward each other.
Yeah, just separated by a few inches of paint.
Exactly, a painted yellow line on the asphalt.
Yep.
And we entirely trust that a complete stranger won't just, decide to swerve into our lane.
That is the perfect way to visualize it, because that yellow line offers absolutely zero physical protection.
Nothing at all.
Right. Its entire power is based on a mutual, unspoken agreement. We all just agree to pretend the line is a wall.
Right.
So what becomes truly horrifying, and what we're going to see in these sources, is what happens when someone decides they no longer recognize the yellow line.
When they realize it's just paint.
Exactly. The illusion of safety shatters instantly.
And that shattering of a physical boundary is exactly where our first account begins. We are looking at the physical walls of a school after dark.
Right, and the setting here is basically a character itself.
Oh, definitely. So the narrator is a high school junior. He describes himself as a nerd, which, back in that era, practically guaranteed you were going to be targeted.
Yeah, and his main tormentor all year has been this kid named Steve.
Right. But going back to the setting, this isn't some brightly lit modern glass and steel campus. It's an imposing, decrepit private school.
And it actually served as a tuberculosis hospital in the 1950s, right?
Yes. Which is wild. It's complete with these rumors of underground tunnels that were supposedly used for disposing of bodies.
The psychology of architecture plays a massive role in how we process fear.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, when you have a building heavily weighted with a dark history, especially one involving mass illness and death, the environment itself just feels oppressive.
That makes total sense.
And students occupy that space every single day. So their brains naturally try to make sense of that ambient anxiety by creating urban legends.
So they need a narrative to explain why the building feels so hostile.
Exactly. It's why rumors of underground body disposal tunnels inevitably spring up in places like that.
Well, Steve, the resident bully, he decides to capitalize on that hostility. As the year winds down, he breaks into the school at night to pull this elaborate prank.
He really just wants to prove he's untouchable.
Totally. So he trashes classrooms, he tears books off the library shelves, and then he just dips into full horror movie cliche territory.
Oh, right, with the paint.
Yeah, he steals red paint from the art room and writes things like, "Get out your soul is next, and death is coming across the lockers."
It's highly performative.
Very. He clearly wants an audience to marvel at his rebellion.
But the audience he ends up finding isn't his classmates.
No, it is not.
And that performative aspect is key, because Steve is operating under the assumption that he is the most dangerous thing in that building.
He's playing the role of the monster.
Exactly. But his bravado completely collapses when he's confronted with something that is outside of his script.
Right, because he gets caught and expelled. And the reason he gets caught is that he absolutely panics.
What did he say happened?
He tells the administration that when he got near the basement door, he saw shadows moving and heard these evil, whispering voices coming from the darkness below.
And he just bolted.
He ran away screaming, and ironically, the school rumor mill immediately decides Steve is some kind of brave survivor of a ghostly encounter.
So everyone starts fawning over him.
Exactly, which completely infuriates our narrator since, he's been bullied by this guy all year.
Right.
So on the actual last day of school, the narrator and his friends decide they're going to break into that basement and just prove Steve is a lying coward.
Which is such an interesting psychological shift for the narrator and his friends.
How do you mean?
Well, all year long, they've been the good kids, but the structure of the school year is ending. That yellow line is fading, and they willingly shed that identity.
Oh, yeah. They swipe a key from a friend's mom who works as a janitor. They put on dark clothes.
Right. They actively choose to cross a boundary they've respected for years. They're trespassing out.
And the moment they step inside, the atmosphere is just suffocating. They head down this dark staircase into a massive, dusty basement.
And they're only using, cheap dollar store flashlights?
Yeah, which barely make a dent in the gloom. The place is a graveyard of school history, storage boxes, rotting textbooks, extra uniforms.
And those weird religious statues.
Yes, a collection of old religious statues just staring at them from the shadows. So creepy.
So they make their way to a far corner of the basement.
Right, a corner that is noticeably freezing cold. They move some boxes and they uncover a hole in the wall.
About the size of a beach ball, right?
Yeah, and it opens up into total pitch black darkness. A tunnel.
So they found the physical manifestation of the urban legend, the rumored body tunnel.
Exactly. And because their entire mission is to debunk the myth of Steve's ghost, they are compelled to investigate it.
Of course.
So our narrator loses rock, paper, scissors, naturally, and he has to crawl in first. He squeezes into the dark tunnel, and almost immediately, he hears a whooshing sound.
Oh no.
And that sound slowly morphs into a whisper. He points his weak flashlight ahead, and about 15 feet away, squatting in the dirt, is a person.
It's a real person.
A shirtless, skeletal man, so incredibly emaciated, his ribs are jutting out, and he just has these vacant, half-open eyes staring back at him.
That is horrifying.
The narrator is terrified, but he tries to be rational. He asks if the man is okay.
Does he answer?
No. Instead of answering, the man lets out this guttural, unnatural noise, drops to his hands and knees, and just lunges at him like a feral animal.
The complete absence of human communication there is what makes that image so deeply disturbing.
It really is. The narrator scrambles backward, his friends pull him out, and they just bolt up the stairs.
Wow.
Yeah, they manage to slam the basement door shut just as they hear this feral man hit the other side.
That is so close.
Too close. Now, the narrator concludes later that this wasn't supernatural. It was almost certainly an unhoused person or an addict who found his way into the underground tunnels through a sewer outfall.
So he was just surviving in the school walls.
Yeah. But I was thinking about this, and it actually bothers me way more that it was a real person.
How so?
Like, if I'm in the Scooby-Doo gang and I pull off the mask and it's a real ghost, that's just a spooky story.
Right.
But finding a desperate feral guy living in the walls, that means my actual physical reality is compromised. Why is a logical explanation so much more unsettling than a supernatural urban legend?
Well, you're hitting on the concept of the psychological safety buffer.
Okay, what's that?
We love urban legends and ghost stories because they're contained. A ghost belongs to the realm of the impossible, which means your brain doesn't actually have to integrate it into your daily survival calculus.
Ah, I see. You don't have to plan for a ghost attack when you go to chemistry class.
Exactly. But encountering a desperate, unpredictable human being inside a place that is designed to be a highly structured, secure learning environment.
That shatters the buffer entirely.
Yes, it proves that the fortress is porous. The danger is real, it breathes, and it's living right underneath your feet while you're taking a math test.
The walls aren't solid. The boundary is just an illusion.
Right.
And that realization transitions us perfectly into our second account, because while that first story is about kids willingly crossing a physical boundary into a dark space, this next one is about a threat slipping unnoticed across a social boundary.
Yeah, we are moving from a creepy basement to the ultimate symbol of summer freedom, the massive, unsupervised house party.
A setting where the rules of engagement are already inherently blurred.
Exactly.
So our narrator, Kip, is a college student back in his hometown for the summer. His friend Logan has this sprawling, isolated mansion out in the middle of nowhere.
Sounds like a perfect setup for a horror movie.
Oh, it gets better. It's got a pool and a massive backyard that dead ends into a dense, dark forest.
Of course it does.
Logan's parents are out of town, so they throw a huge rager. And to make things chaotic, they decide on a whim to make it a Halloween costume party.
Even though it's the end of May.
Exactly. So people throw together cheap outfits. Kip is wearing a bathing suit and a classic Jason Voorhees hockey mask.
Naturally.
The house fills up with dozens of random people, and because everyone's wearing masks, no one knows who anyone else actually is.
Which is wild, because if we look at the mechanics of this, they have inadvertently created a textbook environment for de-individuation.
De-individuation, what is that?
It's a psychological state where people lose their sense of individual identity and personal responsibility.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when you put on a mask and strip away facial recognition, your brain's frontal lobe, the part that handles accountability and social rules, it essentially goes offline.
That makes a lot of sense.
The social contract of a party relies entirely on knowing who is in the room with you. When you remove that transparency, chaos can slip in completely unnoticed.
And chaos definitely slips in.
Yeah.
Kip notices a girl inside the house wearing a really striking, bright gold masquerade mask, and she's standing completely alone, which is odd for a rager.
Right, usually people are in groups.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She waves at him through the glass. He waves back, but when he tries to go inside to talk to her, she just vanishes into the crowd.
Okay, that's a little eerie.
Fast forward a few hours. Kip is swimming in the pool, still wearing his Jason mask, by the way, when he spots the gold mask girl again.
Where is she at this time?
This time she's walking away from the lights of the party, across the massive lawn, heading straight for the dark tree line of the forest.
So she is purposefully crossing the boundary line between the safety of the illuminated crowd and the isolation of the unknown.
Exactly. Kip yells out to her, but she doesn't stop. She reaches the trees, turns back, waves at him one more time, and literally gestures for him to follow her into the dark.
He actually goes.
He does. Freezing cold, soaking wet in his swimsuit, he just blindly runs across the lawn after her.
Wow.
When he gets to the woods, it's pitch black. He can't see her at all, but he hears her voice from the shadows saying, "Don't go back yet, come and find me first."
Notice how she weaponizes the context of the party there.
What do you mean?
By framing this as a flirtatious game of hide and seek, she completely lowers his defenses. I mean, if a stranger in the woods tells you to follow them, your threat response activates.
Oh, absolutely. I'd run the other way.
Right. But because they are at a costume party, Kip's brain interprets this as playful, not predatory.
That is so true. She keeps speaking from the dark, teasing him, saying he looks cold and she can warm him up. She even leaves her gold mask on the ground for him to find like a breadcrumb.
So he is totally reeled in.
Completely. Finally, he spots her standing a few feet away. Her head is down, her hair is covering her face. He walks up, introduces himself, and says, "My name is Kip."
And what does she say?
She replies, "I know who you are."
Oh man, the game's over.
Yeah.
That single sentence is a chilling shift in tone because it reintroduces identity into a space where everyone was supposed to be anonymous.
Right. So she lifts her head, and Kip realizes with total shock that it's his ex-girlfriend from college.
The one who lives like hours away.
Yes. She lives 8 hours away and 2 states over. And before Kip's brain can even process the impossibility of her being there, he hears a branch snap.
Oh no.
She lunges at him with a solid metal baseball bat, aiming a full force swing directly at his head.
I mean, that is a completely lethal level of violence executed with premeditation.
It's terrifying.
She traveled across state lines, infiltrated an isolated party, used a disguise, and deliberately lured him away from witnesses.
Yeah. Kip barely dives out of the way. The bat misses his skull by inches. She takes a second overhead swing and misses again.
He's incredibly lucky.
So Kip scrambles to his feet and just sprints back to the house, screaming for his life. Now, if you're listening to this, you're probably thinking, call the police immediately.
Right, that's the logical step.
But you have to put yourself in the shoes of a panicked teenager at an illegal party. Logan, the homeowner, locks the mansion down but absolutely refuses to call the cops.
Because he doesn't want to get arrested for hosting an underage drinking rager.
Exactly. So Kip is forced to spend the entire night terrified, staring out the windows into the dark tree line, just waiting for the sun to come up while the girl with the bat is still out there.
Logan's refusal to call the police is such a perfect example of immediate social risk assessment overriding long-term survival logic.
That's a great way to put it.
To a teenager, the immediate threat of parental wrath and legal trouble from an underage party feels more guaranteed than the abstract threat out in the woods.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Now, Kip mentions in the source material that he and this girl only dated for a few weeks. He ended it because she was acting, in his words, a little unhinged.
Right.
Like constantly checking his phone, exploding with rage if he was 2 minutes late. He genuinely categorizes it as a harmless breakup. But I have to push back on Kip's assessment there, because clearly, to her, it wasn't harmless at all. There is a terrifying disconnect between how we perceive our own actions and how the people on the receiving end process them.
Yeah, you're touching on the deeply unsettling psychology of obsession there.
Yeah.
Kip assumed the relationship ended when he communicated that it ended.
Right.
He assumed they both agreed to the social contract of a breakup.
Yeah.
You go your way, I go mine. But obsession does not respect social contracts.
It really doesn't. And Kip's worldview was permanently altered by this event. The source notes he stopped drinking, stopped partying, and constantly looked over his shoulder for years.
I can imagine.
He had a sudden, violent realization that human interactions never occur in a vacuum. You leave emotional footprints on every single person you meet, and you have absolutely no control over how a disturbed mind might interpret those footprints.
Well said.
Now, Kip was targeted because of a past romantic relationship. Even though it was brief, there was a personal tie.
Right?
But our final source document asks an even darker question. What if the obsession comes from someone whose relationship to you is strictly professional?
Which brings us to the violation of the ultimate safe space. The breach of the home.
Yes. This account comes from a woman known as Miss Jones. She's a substitute history teacher who took over a high school senior government class from April until the end of the year.
Okay.
Miss Jones is young, she keeps the lessons engaging, and rather than just reading from a textbook, her entire curriculum is focused on teaching these seniors how to have healthy debates.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. She spends months teaching them how to communicate with people they vehemently disagree with.
I really want to highlight that detail, actually.
Oh, why is that?
Because she is actively instructing them on the rules of civilized engagement. The irony of what happens next is just staggering, and it makes a psychological impact much more devastating.
That is so true. So it's the last half day of school. The seniors are hyped, saying their goodbyes. Miss Jones goes back to her empty classroom to pack up her belongings.
Okay.
She puts her purse in her desk drawer, steps out for 5 minutes to talk to the principal about a potential full-time job. And when she returns, she finds one of her students, a quiet, brilliant kid named Ben, just standing next to her desk.
Which immediately triggers a subtle alarm bell. The boundary of the teacher's personal workspace has been breached without permission.
Right. She asks Ben what he's doing, and his response is completely deadpan and vague. He just shrugs and says he's doing some thinking.
Creepy.
Very. She firmly tells him he has to leave because she's locking up. He slowly walks to the door, doesn't look back, and just says, "Thank you, I'm sure I'll see you around." Ms. Jones notes that his tone felt incredibly weird, like a threat disguised as a pleasantry. After he leaves, she goes to grab her purse, and she finds it has been moved from inside the drawer to the top of the chair.
Okay, so her immediate assumption is probably theft, right?
Yeah.
Which is the logical, rational fear. You see a moved purse, you assume someone took your cash.
Exactly. She frantically unzips her wallet, but all the money is still there. Nothing is missing.
Well,
For a brief second, she assumes his conscience got the better of him and he chickened out of stealing. But then the delayed realization hits her, and it is so much worse.
it wasn't stealing cash.
No, he was looking at her driver's license. He was memorizing her home address.
That is a brilliant and terrifying escalation. The threat isn't immediate violence or theft. It's the silent gathering of intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
He's collecting the data he needs to dismantle her safety later.
And he definitely uses it. Over the weekend, this slow build of dread sets in. Luckily, their 7-year-old son is staying at a cousin's house.
Thank goodness.
Right. But strange things start happening around the property. The husband finds the backyard shed door wide open with muddy footprints inside.
Oh no.
The next morning, the back door of the house is found slightly ajar, even though they swore they locked it.
So the perimeter of the home is systematically being tested. Ben is probing the defenses.
Exactly. Then we reach the climax. It's late at night. Miss Jones wakes up entirely due to what she describes as mother's intuition.
He just felt it.
She just feels a heavy wrongness in the air. She gets out of bed, walks into the dark hallway, and freezes.
Someone is there.
There is a silhouette standing at the end of the hall right outside her son's empty bedroom. She flicks on the light, and it's Ben.
Her student.
Her student, standing inside her house in the middle of the night.
What does he do?
He doesn't even panic. He just looks at her, smiles, and says, "Hey, Miss Jones, nice house."
That line is bone-chilling. It's complete assertion of dominance.
Ben turns and casually walks into the son's bedroom. The husband wakes up from the commotion, rushes into the room, and tries to grab him.
Does he catch him?
No. Ben literally launches himself out the second-story window, lands on his feet in the yard, and just runs off into the night.
Unbelievable.
And to make this nightmare even worse, when the police show up at Ben's house, his parents provide a rock-solid false alibi, claiming he was asleep in his bed the entire time.
Wow.
Yeah, the police tell Miss Jones their hands are tied. Without proof, they can't arrest him.
Which really highlights a terrifying limitation of our justice system when it's forced to deal with sociopathic behavior that is masked by, suburban normalcy.
Absolutely.
Huh.
This feels like a modern digital age fear brought into the physical world.
How do you mean?
It's like getting doxxed by an anonymous internet troll, but instead of dealing with a screen, the nice kid from your debate class physically materializes in your hallway.
Oh, that's a terrifying comparison.
I keep thinking about how a teacher is supposed to process this. It's like spending months teaching someone how to play a complex, rules-based game of chess, and their first move is to just flip the board over and set the room on fire.
Yeah.
It completely breaks the rules of engagement.
It is psychologically devastating because it destroys the ultimate sanctuary. We leave our doors unlocked during the day. Sometimes we put our IDs in our purses, assuming that the people around us are abiding by the same civilized rules we are.
Right.
What is so deeply disturbing here is that Ben bypassed every single avenue of human communication for a silent, predatory invasion.
He didn't argue with her. He didn't express anger.
Exactly. He just bypassed the yellow line entirely. And the lingering trauma of that is profound. The source actually notes that the family couldn't sleep there anymore.
No, of course not.
They are currently selling their house and living behind a network of security cameras. The sanctuary is permanently broken.
Wow. So, if we synthesize everything we've unpacked today, the overarching theme is undeniable.
Definitely.
These three sources take the innocence of the end of school year and meticulously strip it away. They show us how incredibly fragile our boundaries actually are.
Yeah, we looked at a physical boundary like the heavy doors of a school basement, hiding a feral reality.
Right. And we looked at a social boundary, like the unwritten rules of a crowded costume party, providing cover for a lethal obsession.
And we looked at the most intimate personal boundary, the walls of a home breached by a quiet student.
And I think it's vital to remember that what makes these accounts so deeply unsettling isn't the presence of a boogeyman.
No, it's the unpredictable reality of human nature. The monsters in these sources aren't supernatural. They are just people we misunderstand or people we severely underestimate.
Which leaves you with a really provocative thought to chew on as we wrap up. We navigate our daily lives, we end relationships, we leave our bags on our desks, we lock our front doors based entirely on an unspoken social contract.
Right, we assume everyone else around us is acting rationally.
Exactly. But if something as mundane as a driver's license and a purse, or a brief college romance, is all it takes to trigger a life-threatening obsession, how much of your perceived safety is just an illusion that we all agree to believe in?
It really makes you wonder.
So the next time you lock your door and turn out the lights,